Move over, Cyber Demon. I've got spooky stuff to do. Hello, and welcome to this spooktacular episode of Tech Ambrosia. If you couldn't tell, Halloween is here, and a thematically appropriate way to celebrate the best holiday ever is to play some spooky video games. I have assembled a list of 5 spooky games from ages past that you can play right now, either on retro hardware, in emulators, or on modern hardware. But before we get into the games, I'd like to tell you about this video's sponsor, Evil. Have you ever found yourself in a position where you'd really like to slough off the oppressive yoke of society, but doing so yourself was either budgetarily or logistically unfeasible? Well, Evil has you covered with an impressive collection of doing whatever the heck you want, with a wide range of subjects and unlimited downloads. Evil is also amply supplied with civil uprisings, labor rights movements, and LGBT glory, and Evil's interface is easy to use and navigate. Ideas are royalty-free for both personal and commercial use, so you can think them and enact them as much as you want, wherever you want. So if you think you could take advantage of a fantastic library of quality, liberation, and equity, check out Evil using your local library or the Satanic Temple today. I'm going to kick off this gaggle of gruesome games with the granddaddy of the survival horror genre, Alone in the Dark. Alone in the Dark was originally published in 1992 for MS-DOS and had a tumultuous and steamy development history, including sex and betrayal. The game itself garnered several awards upon its release, and has been acknowledged as a foundational title in horror video games. In it, you control either Edward Canby or Emily Hartwood, and attempt to escape the monster-infested manor of Derceto. You start in the attic of the manor, searching for clues about the owner, Jeremy Hartwood's death. The visual style and gorgeous pre-rendered backgrounds are peak DOS VGA goodness, with chunky pixels and lots of delicious dithering setting a suitably supernatural scene. The controls are entirely keyboard-based, and admittedly pretty clunky these days. Playing it is definitely a save early, save often affair, with monsters that are frequently faster than you are, as well as numerous bugs that tend to either kill your character or crash your game. Overall, if you're a survival horror fan, this game's worth a play in at least an academic sense. This is where it all started, and while it might not exactly hold up today, this game is a spectacular specimen of spookiness simulation. The OG survival horror game is available in a pack with the first 2 sequels on GOG. Speaking of sequels, it spawned a total of 5 of them, including a 2008 game by the same name that sees you playing as a certain Edward as you attempt to escape a crumbling New York City hotel, investigate your identity, and discover your connection to the Stone. The game apes the original survival horror aspect, although in true 2008 fashion, it has tons of intrusive tutorial messages, a toggleable first-person mode, and is rendered entirely in real-time 3D with bloom for miles. The signs of its time don't end there, as it suffers from mid-2000s camera control melees and third-person view. However, it does allow you to look around at the environments more closely and makes the big set-piece events really feel all the more real and threatening when you're right there in the thick of them. Speaking of set pieces, the game pulls no punches, at least during the opening segment, and dares you to escape the hotel unharmed while being more than happy to throw fire, steam, electricity, and supernatural enemies your way. It's on Steam. If you pick it up, you'll need a resolution patch available on its Steam community page. Link in the description. Crypt? Get it? Because if Alone in the Dark 2008, and especially the original Alone in the Dark, aren't hard enough for you, there's always Ghosts and Goblins, the 1985 release from Capcom. This game originally appeared in the arcade, but over the years has been ported to just about every system known to humanity, including this version for the Commodore 64, where its searing difficulty level fits right in with other platforming games on the system. In it, you play as the brave knight Arthur, equipped with your trusty lance, and attempt to rescue the Princess Prin from the clutches of the evil demon lord Astaroth. You know, typical mid-80s game design. This game is brutally difficult, as you're only able to take 2 hits before dying. Spare suits of armor exist, but they're few and far between, and many of the weapon power-ups aren't as versatile as your default lance, making picking them up a crapshoot. The setting is suitably spooky, however, with you traversing graveyards, ghost towns, and elaborate caves before finally entering the demon realm itself to confront Astaroth. The original arcade release is available as DLC for Capcom's Arcade Stadium Collection on Steam. Also, there's a modern reimagining called Ghosts 'n Goblins Resurrection that's also available for Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch. This version runs in Capcom's RE engine and updates the original game's graphics with intricate marionette-style sprites and detailed, hand-drawn backgrounds. It still keeps the original's brutal gameplay loop, though. Spooky Capcom games are not limited to the 80s, however, and if you grew up as part of the PlayStation generation, the next game will be old hat to you. Resident Evil introduced the survival horror genre to millions when it was released for the original PlayStation in 1996. It launched to critical acclaim and was an overnight success, selling over 2 million copies in its first year of availability. Resident Evil took Alone in the Dark's formula of 3D rendered characters overlaid onto pre-rendered backgrounds and ran with it, using the at the time capricious storage of the PlayStation CD-ROM media to tremendous success. The atmosphere and tension in the game redefined the genre, and Resident Evil became the gold standard for survival horror from then on. You play as either Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine, each with unique capabilities, and explore a zombie-filled mansion as you attempt to survive and piece together the story of what happened in this accursed place. The original game is, of course, still playable on existing PlayStations and PS2s, but Capcom also released an HD remaster of the game in 2015 to immense commercial success. The HD remaster retains the same deliberately paced gameplay of the original while updating the character models and backgrounds to levels of graphical fidelity befitting a 2015 release. The HD remaster is available on PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. Just a quick aside while we're talking about Resident Evil, while I haven't included any VR horror games in this list, not because they aren't spooky, just because I realize not everyone has VR, I do want to mention that if you have an Oculus Quest 2, Resident Evil 4 VR released just recently and is, according to reviews, a pretty good, scary time. The fourth game in the Spooktacular roundup is Gabriel Knight: Sins of the Fathers. This is a game about a man with no future searching for clues in the present and unraveling the secrets of his past. The Gabriel Knight series is known for its particularly sarcastic tone, and Gabriel himself is portrayed as a handsome but unlikable womanizer. He's researching New Orleans' alternate universe history of voodoo murders for his upcoming book, although, as the introduction unfolds, it becomes clear that he's been doing more gumshoeing than writing. As you guide Gabriel through the twisted plot of the game, it starts to take on a Van Helsing vibe, with Gabriel learning that he shares a past with hunters of the supernatural. The first Gabriel Knight game spawned 2 sequels, and in 2014 gained an HD remaster that saw the graphics, sound, and dialogue lines completely overhauled. The original game used rotoscoped hand-drawn animations for characters, as was the norm for the time, but the remaster swaps the 2D sprites for 3D models with environmental lighting. And while the game can sometimes suffer from an uncanny valley effect, I think for the most part the art style is sufficiently cartoonish that it works pretty well to keep the player immersed in the gameplay. If you can get past Gabriel's grating personality, there's a lot to love in this game. The original was published for DOS in 1993, and both it and the HD remastered release are available on GOG and Steam. Before I talk about the last game on the list, the only first-person shooter on the list, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one of the spookiest and, at the time, most anticipated first-person shooters ever to come out of the mid-2000s, Doom 3. Doom 3 is a misunderstood game. If you look at it as a direct sequel to Doom 2, it bears only surface-level similarities, with a dramatically slower gameplay loop and a level of interactability that feels more at home in a first-person Fallout game than a fast-paced shooter like the original Doom. However, the game's intensely hellish atmosphere and moody lighting, punctuated by its short set pieces and powerful monster reveals, makes it feel right at home in the horror genre. Having bought this game at the height of Quake Mania back in 2004, and summarily being disappointed that it wasn't a fast-paced, frenetic firefight like its predecessors, I shelved the game until I watched LGR's retrospective and recontextualized the game through the lens of modern horror shooters. And suddenly, it made a lot more sense to me. Doom 3 is available on Steam, or you can pick up original copies on eBay, which should run nicely on a Windows XP Retro PC with a Radeon X 850 or better GPU. Okay, this is the last game in the list, Clive Barker's Undying, and I'll be honest, I'd completely forgotten this game existed until I just recently watched Civi 11's 2019 review of it. This was an ambitious title for 2001. It's an Unreal Engine game that if you download it from GOG, runs with a glide wrapper on by default. It's perfectly happy to detect your DirectX GPU and use it, but the engine isn't able to render some of the more spooky graphical effects using Direct 3D. So as silly as it seems to use a glide wrapper in 2021, you might want to leave it on for this one. This game starts spooky and doesn't let up. Atmospheric shooters from the early 2000s are a real crapshoot, but this one is relentless in its presentation. I'm sad I missed this one back in the day because it is a real treat. If you want a more detailed review of the game, I highly recommend Civi's review of it, available here. If you're interested and you want to play the game sight unseen, the first 10 minutes of his video are about a 1-to-1 with the first 10 minutes of the game itself. It's great for whetting your appetite if you haven't seen the game before, but if you don't want spoilers, you have been warned. So there you have it. 5 spooky games to celebrate the best holiday of the year. Have fun, and remember to stay weird this spooky season. Until next time, ta-ta! Royalty free? I need you to scroll my teleprompter. It's gonna be like 10 minutes. Scroll up and up. I can sort of push the button, mostly. I should be okay. Just trying to wrangle my hair. Hang on. Oh, come on. There we go. There we go. It's okay. It can look a little bit like a hack, because... Yeah. Might have to ask you to do it again. I'm not actually that good at reading from my teleprompter, believe it or not. There we go. But before we get into the game,